Hi, my name's Jeff Rhodes, and I'm going to talk to you about Office 365. In today's episode, we're going to talk about using jQuery, in particular jQuery UI, to handle some buttons and put them on your SharePoint page. And we're going to do this in Office 365, but if you have an older version of SharePoint, this will work as well. So this is an example from my book, Creating Business Applications with Office 365, Techniques in SharePoint, Power Apps, Power BI, and more. You can see that on your screen. It's up on Amazon, and since my last video, they moved the release up, so November 30th, 2019, so you may be seeing this after there. And if that's it, hope you go out and buy it. So let's get started. I've got a page already set up, so I'm going to show you what it is that we're going to do, and then we'll kind of build it in stages. So we've got some jQuery UI buttons, and I've got what they call a Redmond, which is kind of a Microsoft looking style, and I'll show you later where you put that in. And it's kind of interesting. We set this up as a list, and what's kind of like is see how it moves around based on the size of your page. So that's kind of nice rather than putting it in a table or something like that. It makes it a little more responsive design. The other thing it does is uses when you click on it, it puts it, does it to my other monitor, but it puts it in a particular size window without, it has scroll bars, but it doesn't have a lot of the other things on there. And then if I do the same thing with Bing, it kind of is moving it around because I have the location set as well. But see how it reuses the same window. So we'll talk about the JavaScript to make that happen as well. So the technique that we use is I'm going to go back to Site Pages, and I'm going to make a new page so that we can do this from scratch. And so if you're in a modern site like this, you need to, and I have a different video on this, but you need to do a wiki page or a classic page, not the modern page, to get this to be able to put our content editor web part. So I'm going to make a wiki page here, and I'll just call it jQuery UI for video. Not the greatest name, but be good enough. And that gives us our familiar adding web part business. So we'll come back to this page in a minute, but that'll be ready to go. So what I like to do is I like to use Visual Studio to help me get some our formatting right. It makes it a little easier to write our file, but then we're going to save it as a text file and put that in a document library. I like to call it a code library, and then we'll link to that from a content editor. And that's nice and safe. You can always just change the text file. You can even use it on multiple pages if you wanted. So that's a nice design. So, all right, so we're going to say new file. In this case, we could do either HTML or JavaScript, and sometimes I'll do one of each for the HTML part. So that's probably what we'll do here. So let's make an HTML page. I'm not sure what that was about, but that's fine. Don't really need that in there. So really what we're doing in the HTML is just help us get our formatting set up. I'm not going to type all this from scratch, so let me go from my example. So the first thing I want to do is put some styles in there. So if we were putting the styles within the HTML page, it would look like that. So let me put the HTML, and then we'll show what the styles look like. All right, so we're gonna what we'll do is put in our div, and the other thing I like is Visual Studio has this format button, which kind of does a nice thing of going. Okay, so what's going on? We'll cover a little bit of jQuery as well, because we'll have the jQuery library as well, which is an open source JavaScript library. So we're going to have a div, and we're given an ID of main page link buttons. And then we've got an unordered list with a list item for each one. And it's those list items that reorder for us so that we can go in. But normally these would come in as bullets. And so we're going to style those. So each button, you'll see I'll give it an ID which is in this case pretty much the same as its title and the text of the button, Google, but the ID we wouldn't have any spaces. So if we didn't need to put spaces, we would do that in the label of the button and not for the not in the ID. And we're giving them a class. Okay, and that's how we're going to make them all the same width. And these, the title and the label is more for our accessibility. And so each one of them, notice we don't have any script of saying on click or anything. We're going to cover that all with jQuery. Okay, and then what are we doing in our style? So now you can see we've got, okay, main page button, the pound here means that we're looking at the ID. So that's the same in CSS, cascading style sheets, as it is in jQuery. So we're going to say, okay, give me all unordered list within a main page link button object, in the case of div, and we're going to set its list style to none. So that gets rid of the bullets. And then we're going to go in and say, okay, when we have a list item inside of an unordered list, that way we're going to say inline block and padding. And that kind of just formats a little bit. And then we're going to get the dot here. Dot means class. So that's where we have class 0365 buttons. We're going to give them all the same width, so that otherwise they would vary by how much text they are. But we want to make sure the width's big enough for the longest caption. And then we have a little bit, we look for icons, and I think in the end I use that class in something else, because I don't really need that one, so let me get rid of it. My example that I did originally, I had some icon buttons like, pictures of Facebook and so forth, and I had some styles there. So to get us started, let's go ahead and grab this and put it into a text file. So we'll get rid of the stuff we don't want, because we don't really need other things. And so I'll just bring up my trusty text pad here, which is an editor I've used for many, many years that I like, but you can use Notepad++ or regular Notepad or whatever. Or we could use Visual Studio as well. So we don't really need this head and this body, because that came from inside when we did it inside an HTML page. And we could format this a little bit more, but it's okay. So that's the part that we want inside there. So we'll go ahead and save this. And let's just make a thing here. I'll just call it jQuery UI. And we're going to call it jQuery UI video code. Like that. All right, so let's go back to our page, and actually we won't need that yet. We'll come back to it. Let's go. You'll see I should already have a code library that I use for the book, and see it's got some of these jQuery UI button. I called it in the other example. So we'll upload file, and actually instead of that, let's drag it here. Oh, I guess I didn't actually have it open yet, so we'll just find it here. I think it's documents. Oh, it's not in that one. Let me find out where I put it a little bit more. Let's see. Maybe I can do this. Save as. I got a couple documents there, so we'll pull it that way. Okay. There we go. That's good enough. So it's in there now, and then we can copy the link to that, and then we'll make sure that gave us what we want. Hard to get to the end of that. Yeah, it's not actually quite what I want, is it? Actually, another way to do it is just click on it. yeah, usually you do that part in Internet Explorer. So that's all right. We'll do it a different way. We'll just get it from here. If we just go here and get that path, and then just remember the name of it, which was jQuery UI video code.txt. That's another way to get it. So, all right, let's go back over here, and we're going to insert a web part. And I have a different video on how to get this to show up on Office 365 for you. So we'll add it here. And then we come over and do the web part properties. And we just paste that in. But now, actually the easiest will be is we just copy that from there. I don't like to do any typos. Like that. And then what I like to do is put a note in here, and this will only show up when they're editing the page. So we'll say jQuery UI code, do not delete. But we don't want to see that all the time, so we change its Chrome type to none. And that'll only show up when they're editing the page. All right, so far so good. We'll save it. And notice when we save it how that code went away. So our buttons don't do anything, and they're not styled yet. The other thing that's kind of interesting, notice what happens if you look closely. See how it reloads the page each time you click the button. That's one of the things we're going to have to address, because we don't want that, because that can be relatively slow. So this works if you're into ASP.NET. It's very much like an ASP.NET button that it refreshes or it runs the page, and we're going to have to stop that. And the way we stop that is our click handler needs to return false. So we'll see that a little bit later. All right, so let's go back to our HTML, and like I said, let's go ahead and create a JavaScript file to help us with the JavaScript. And again, just helps us navigate it. So I'll go back to my source. Now, when we get and put it inside the HTML page, we'll have to put the JavaScript inside of a script block. So we'll get to that. But let's just put, since we're in JavaScript page right now, we don't need that, and it'll help us format it. So let's just go in here. We don't need that. And we'll paste in our code like that, format it. All right, so this will need to, let's make that even a little bit bigger so that we can just put like 125. How's that? There we go. So we see it nice and big. We don't really need this Solution Explorer right now. All right, so what does this mean? This dollar function. So dollar means jQuery. So our jQuery library. And it has a shortcut called document.ready, but you don't have to actually put that. If you just say dollar and put these parentheses, then that's a shortcut. So we're going to say, okay, when the page is fully loaded, and this is real important because the way SharePoint has a lot of stuff that happens, and it's building the page, and we want to fix that. I mean, we want to wait till it's all loaded until we start doing our thing. So that's what jQuery does for us. So then we're going to basically do some stuff for each button. Okay, so this part here is called a selector. So we're going to say, find me the object that has an ID with what the pound means, just like those styles we looked at, of Google. And then when we do it, we're going to call its button method. And that's what turns a regular object into a jQuery UI object. And that will make it a button with rollovers and all that stuff. But while we're doing it, we're also going to define its click. So when the click event happens, we're going to call another function, and we're going to use our own internal show O365 window, and it's got a couple parameters. The URL that we want, and then we'll go down and see what that second, and the window name. Oh, okay, so I kind of misstated it before. I kind of forgot my own function here. So in this case, I gave a different window name for each one. So I can actually have a Google, a Bing, a Facebook, a LinkedIn window all open at once. Often what I'll do is I'll give these the same name, so if I want to reuse them, so I may call it help or something, and in that case it would reuse the same window name. And then we have this return false. And the reason, as I mentioned, is that's what keeps the page from reloading. So you can see each one of these does the same. We got the LinkedIn, got the Bing, and then this also tries, just to be doubly sure, we show Office 365 window. We have used the window.open, the URL, and then we put some styles. That's the width, height, left top, and everything. Return it again. Oh, and then you see I actually am missing a block here at the end. Let's see if it was in my original code. No, it looks like so I had this function. Yeah, interesting. I'll have to fix that. So it says it's missing that. I probably need, nope. There, that's what it should have had. So it still works. JavaScript's pretty forgiving, but this was all within that function up here. So we needed to close basically that parentheses and then close the whole line. So, all right, that part's good. And then the only other thing, so let's copy that and go back to our file. And we'll do all that after the style. So we'll just paste that in. And we need to put that inside of script tags because this is back inside the original page, so we can put that in script blocks. There we go. And then we have more script that's needed. Okay, because we need to put in link to our JavaScript jQuery libraries, and we can do that online. So notice it's got like a code.jquery.com. So this is regular jQuery, which we need for all the dollars and stuff, and then this is jQuery UI. And then we need one more for the styles, because you have to tell it what style to use. And there's that Redmond theme, and there's other ones you can do on jQuery UI. And pick which one you want, or even do custom themes and so forth. And I think that's it. So let's save that. And then we'll need to go back to our code library. Let's see if we can find that. Let's see if it remembered where we were from. I need to uncheck that so we get the upload again. There it was. It'll replace it. Oops, that was the one that worked. So notice if all goes well, we should just be able to reload this. There we go. See how we got our nice rollovers. So that's where we know the jQuery UI is working. We know we can move this around, and that's what gets the, because of those that have been inside of a list. And let's try LinkedIn this time. So it comes over here, and now we know we actually have two windows. So we got that other one went to the back, but we've got Microsoft. So, all right, well, that should be enough for this video. So again, what we covered is just how we can do the technique of putting the code we want to inject on the page into a text file, using a content editor to load that text file, and then using jQuery UI, some styles, and jQuery itself to get the functionality that we want. So we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe. I forgot to mention in this YouTube channel, if you're seeing this, if you go in, it helps me get the word out, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So appreciate you doing that. Thanks. Have a great